Lately, I have been feeling the need to assess both my frozen food and canned goods supplies to ensure proper rotation and reduce waste. Research shows frozen foods result in 5 to 6 times less food waste than fresh food, but not if they fall to the bottom of the freezer, back of the shelf, or get lost in the pantry. With my focus here being on the highest quality foods at the lowest prices possible, it's time to dig deep and see what's been hiding as I prepare for the Pantry Challenge in January. While we clean an inventory together, I'm also going to share 2 exciting giveaways for January. So make sure you stay around until the end because it's some really exciting stuff. For the last couple of years, the first month of the year, being January, is one that I don't grocery shop, or at least not in the same sense that I traditionally do. I only allow myself $20 per week to work toward fresh produce and skip all major purchases and only rely on what's at the house. Now that can be challenging if you don't know exactly what you have, and I have to admit for the past 2 years, I have not done an inventory like this, and I was shocked to find some of the results down in the bottom of my freezers, which we'll travel to here in just a bit. But I'm starting off here in the pantry to make sure that everything is getting properly rotated, because sometimes my kids come in and grab things off the shelf and they might grab from the wrong end of the stack and such, but also to make sure that I'm using everything that I put away on the shelf. It's really easy to find a new recipe and forget it's there, which I've done a couple of times. There's a cucumber and onion relish up on the shelf that I'm looking forward to using now that I found it again. But most importantly, I need an inventory so I know exactly how many of each product is left. That will allow me to know exactly where I need to focus my recipes moving forward in the next few weeks. On this shelf is where you'll find all of the jellies that I make, as well as red onion and cucumber relish, banana peppers, Mexican brisket, onion jam, which is a personal favorite around here, pork butt, turkey stew, vegetable soup, bread and butter and dill pickles, apple jelly, apple butter, and all of the tomato products like tomatoes in jars, tomato water, and tomato sauce, as well as salsa. We usually go through about 50 pints every year, and pretty soon I'm going to have to up that because the guys really are starting to love it, and of course they're growing up. This pantry challenge is put on by Jessica over at Three Rivers Homestead, so I'm sure most of you are familiar with her, but if you're not, make sure to check out all of the content that will be coming up on the 2025 Pantry Challenge. I think the hashtag is 3 Rivers Challenge. It typically is in years past. So you can look for that specifically, or you can just go to the content creators who you typically follow and see if they're participating in the challenge as well. One amazing thing about this is it really helps me to see what I need, what I'm short on, and what I need to stock up on for the future. Last year in the first week, I totally failed. I ended up with sick kids and just wasn't prepared with the basics that I would have normally wanted at home. I could have made them, but wasn't ready in that moment to take it on when I had everything else flying off the shelves around the house. This year, we are obviously praying for good health, but also a smooth pantry challenge as we look to move through some of the items that have been pushed to the back for quite some time. Now, over on my dry goods shelf, I am really guilty of just getting to the bottom of one jar and substituting another ingredient that's right here already full when I'm in the middle of a recipe. So today was a great opportunity to not just inventory, but to also restock. Speaking of inventory, it can be so difficult to find exactly what you're looking for, especially if you're as picky as me. So I went on over to my favorite design site, which is Kittle, pulled up the Meals and More sheet that I've been using for my meal prep guide, and made a few quick changes to change this over to my pantry inventory sheet. I changed things like location, I added the items themselves, moved around some check boxes and got rid of some, and then I produced a sheet that worked super well for exactly my own specific needs in my kitchen. Kittle is an amazing resource for anything you need of this sort, but they do all sorts of design. So if you need any design or have any design challenges around your home, which could be anything from a custom t-shirt to home management, just like I use it for here, make sure to check out kittle.com and use my link in the description, and you will be able to take advantage of 25% off with the code HOMESTEADYT, which I will make sure to put here on the screen for you, as well as leave down in the description. Thank you again to my good friends over at Kittle, not just for helping me organize my pantry, but also for sponsoring today's content. Now it's time to jump back into the pantry restock, and I am bringing you down into the least beautiful space in my whole entire home. But listen, friends, my home was built in 1907. Old basements aren't exactly beautiful, but they were functional back then and they are still super functional now. We were actually looking at another property recently and I couldn't wrap my brain around how to function without an old basement to store all of the things that I needed just like this. So much of my home management actually happens down here in the basement, which I know sounds crazy, but it stores all of my extra bulk goods. I have 2 small freezers here, which we'll tackle in just a minute. And I also start all of my own seeds here for my garden every single spring with the help of some grow lights and some old shelving over in the basement. It's an absolute workhorse and I appreciate it even if it's not beautiful. So now I'm filling up some of the jars that I keep upstairs. These are 1-gallon jars, which I did get from Azure Standard, which also happens to be the location where I buy all of my bulk goods. I make sure to keep things on hand like bread flour and regular flour, as well as several different types of wheat berries. I have a huge 5-gallon bucket of salt over there, which I know might seem like something you wouldn't go through very frequently, but it is so useful for so many purposes. And I love knowing that I'm never going to run out, particularly during canning season. I also keep buckets full of various kinds of beans as well as dried rice down here, and buckets that contain bulk buy deals that I get, which have been amazing savings on things like dishwashing soap and oxy boosting powder. I'm not sure if I'm able to say the official word, but it is an oxygen cleaning agent for laundry. So I get both of those in bulk and save huge on those over time. If you have the space to store the bulk items, it is a great way to do it. If you don't have the space for the buckets, then buy smaller quantities and still package them away. Shove them in places like under the bed, in the top of closets, maybe even redeem a hall closet. Get rid of some of those old coats that you probably aren't wearing. I know we have more than a couple around here that we donated to our church drive recently. So doing things like that can really help to free up some space where you can store some of these foods that you can get at discounted prices and go a long way toward helping out your food budget. I did take a peek while I was down here and all of my buckets are in really good shape. So I did not need to order any extras of these, which I am super thankful for because I actually missed my last Azure Standard cutoff, or I'm not sure how I did it, but I always skip January. So now I'm going to be skipping 2 months in a row. So I will show you that in March. I'm going to have a 3-month Azure stock up when I typically go every single month. So we'll see how we make it on things like cheese and frozen berries that we usually grab from them, hoping the kids don't revolt before we get back to the spring months and are able to grab some of those favorites from our Azure pickup. Now I'm putting everything back up on the shelves up here. I did forget that one of the buckets that I needed for the empty jar was actually right down here below my feet. I recently just purchased this bucket and filled it up and hadn't moved it down. So that is one that I'm going to fill up right here in the pantry and then get that bucket down to its spot on the table downstairs. My next area of attack is the pantry that I have right in my kitchen. This is where I keep all of the spices that I'm using currently, as well as the beans. Most of my canned beans stay in here. And I keep things like canned tomatoes as well as tomato sauce on these shelves. I did quickly see that I need to run another round of beans in the canner again. So that is a project that'll be going on our January list, as well as a couple others that we'll get to here shortly. I also keep every snack kind of item down in the double doors right below my waist. There are things like deer sticks that we get from our butcher, as well as some tortilla chips, plus the bakery items that don't need to be frozen. So if we make bakery items in advance and are planning to keep them for a long term, we will put them in the freezer. But at this specific time, we just have a few things that we were going to eat during the week. So no need to freeze those. And then they are able to just pull them out in the mornings and put them straight in the air fryer that's right here behind these doors. Now, I'm not sure if you've spied it yet or not, but I have a couple roasting ovens over here on the counter. They actually house the next canning project that I have going on here in the kitchen, which is to finish off the remainder of the 2024 tomato production. These tomatoes will be turning into sauce. They were totally frozen. I actually pulled them out of the freezers. I'm showing you this in a little bit of a reverse order. I did my freezer inventory the day before and the pantry inventory second, but for the purposes of editing, it's all flipped around. So these are the tomatoes that I found when I was pulling through the freezers. There were 12 gallons of tomatoes left from the season. We had amazing production and just were able to use all the tomatoes we needed for salsa, as well as the first couple of rounds of sauce. I have more room on the shelves now and less room in the freezers based on a couple of the recent huge grocery hauls that I've done. I know I had one up recently where I saved 70% on some amazing freezer goods, and that has really pushed us over the edge as far as space goes in our freezers, especially because we just picked up 2 deer that were sent off for processing. With the freezers being stuffed to the max, I knew it was time to pull everything out and see exactly what had been hiding down in the bottom. Now, this freezer is one that we got over the last year. It was actually given to us from my mom, who no longer needed it. So it doesn't have much that's hiding out, although it definitely needs some organization and some things pulled out that we no longer need. I am putting a whole bunch of meat over here in this basket. And actually, if you have some freezer baskets that you use and love, will you make sure to comment with the brand or the link or where you got them down in the description? Because as you will be able to see here shortly, I am in dire need of some baskets to help me organize this stuff so I can make the most of the space that I have. I have officially decided that the method of just tossing it all in and hoping it works out is not really the most effective way to manage my freezer space. So here you can see I'm pulling out those tomatoes that we talked about earlier, as well as some elderberries. Now, we actually picked those elderberries off of a bush that we had access to, but have decided recently that that bush might have the possibility of having been sprayed. So we are getting rid of those berries and throwing them out in the compost pile to make sure that we only use a non-chemically treated berry for the purposes of medicine. Now, this is our corn stash. I actually call this our corn freezer. My brother has a huge farm and does tons of corn every single year, and we are lucky enough to be able to get a couple of feed sacks full of corn. In years past, I have put up corn where I have canned it. I have also cut off the ends and vacuum sealed in the serving sizes that we would need for our family. And the best, most amazing way to keep it fresh is just to wad it up in those feed sacks and then cook it straight from frozen on the oven rack. My brother told me that, but I still had to try all the other methods for myself. And I was amazed to see exactly how good and fresh the corn stays just like that with no extra preservation. So if you're looking for a good way to preserve your corn this summer, take the stress off yourself, make it easy. As long as you have the space, all you have to do is throw it in a freezer and pull it out when you're ready. Now, this little black freezer is our catch-all. This is one that we snagged from our neighbors when they were moving across the road. They were having a big garage sale and we were able to get it for a really good price. That's actually the method I use for getting a ton of the appliances and things that I have in my kitchen for homesteading purposes. So keep an eye on things like Facebook Marketplace, but also local garage sales. And don't be afraid to put out to your friends and family the things that you're looking for in case they're getting ready to sell. I was able to get my dehydrator in that way, and it is amazing what other people are willing to get rid of when they know that you're looking for it. Sometimes they have an empty freezer sitting around or a dehydrator that I haven't used in years. So make sure to take advantage of those resources, and you can save big on the things that you're looking for right now. Now, these are the French fries that we gathered on that last big, huge grocery haul. The thing about French fries is they do take up quite a bit of space, so it's nice to have the room available to put them in a freezer of this kind. The last bag that you saw me pull out was more corn. We are down to just one serving. I think there was about 8 different corn ears in that specific bag. So that's the one that we'll use next. It's actually a couple years old at this point, but still tastes amazing. So I have no problem using something that has been in there for a while as long as the flavor and quality still come out just the same. Now, here's where it gets interesting. This freezer is the one that's been around the longest. And as you can see, I have some interesting stuff down there. What I just put down is beef tallow. That is one of my next projects. When we got our beef processed about a year ago at this point, I had them save a whole bunch of fat so I could render it down for cooking oil. I'm going to be doing that in January because I did not make that Azure pickup. So I will be needing some more cooking oil before this is over. That is 5 pounds of pineapple, a couple chickens, which I had totally forgotten were down there. I keep the bulk of our meat in a different freezer out in the garage, which we'll travel to here shortly. But I did totally forget that I had these couple chickens down in the freezer here in the basement. Now, the corn that I'm pulling out here is going to the chickens. It's been around for a couple years, and as I mentioned previously, it's not as delicious as when it's in the husk. And since we have an abundance of what we will truly love, enough to make it at least a year until we get the next harvest, I'm not interested in wasting a meal where we would like to have some delicious corn on something that's not quite going to meet the needs or the desired texture that we're looking for. So in the future, not only will I not waste the time, but I will be able to feed my chickens something that will help to keep them warm here in the winter season. Now it's time to get all of the tomatoes back up on the stairs so I can take them up when I'm gone, as well as get everything put back in the freezers that needs to go in. It is hard when you're reorganizing freezer space because you need to be able to take things out, of course, to make sure there's room for everything. Once it was time to put everything back, I was able to really target exactly what I wanted to go in each specific freezer instead of just worrying about where there was room. That small white freezer has corn, garlic bread, and deer tenderloin. That's it. This one has frozen vegetables and some meats that I got from my recent Butcher Box order, as well as a couple things I found that were left from my Wild Green order back in the fall. So I really love finding things like that will be able to kind of elevate our meals with a very, very minimal amount of work from me and offer the variety that we're all looking for. And that is exactly why I love things like a pantry challenge, because it gives you the encouragement to get creative with the things you have, to use up some of those last items that you have been putting off, and to get creative. Now, I have to tell you, putting all the last tomatoes into the pot actually got my wheels turning on gardening for the spring. I have big plans. We're considering moving our garden location and moving to raised beds. So if you have pros and cons of raised beds versus in-ground, definitely drop those below. But if you're like me and starting to get your garden wheels turning, I want to take just a second to tease an amazing giveaway that I have coming next week. If you are looking for something that is not only user-friendly, but amazing for your plants, you'll definitely want to check out the giveaway that I have coming next week with my friends over at Vago. You'll be able to pick one of two of their new seed starting sets, which is going to be a game changer for the way you handle things at your house. I will tell you, the speed at which this is going to help you plant is unbelievable, and the quality is top notch. So make sure to subscribe to my page if you haven't already. You're also going to have to subscribe to theirs, but I'll give you more details on that next week when the final details come out and I show you a preview of exactly what you can win. What I will say is it is a major step up from the red solo cups, which I used to start seeds when I first started my journey. So if you're even considering garden or getting into this on your own, I would definitely not miss what I have to share with you next week. Additionally, I am or have been announced to participate in Sutton Stays Canuary again this year. So I will be putting up 2 videos on the how-tos of canning. We'll cover everything from steam canning to pressure canning to water bath and more. So if you're interested in learning how to can or even canning curious, you'll want to make sure to follow along with that as well, because Lisa gives away so much canning equipment. It is amazing for the beginner or anyone who's even curious, because you can win one of these awesome canners or the lids and supplies that you need to get going. That one is super fun. It's a whole month-long collaboration and you'll get to meet a lot of amazing creators. So what exactly is in this freezer? Well, we've got butter, pesto, milk, mixed berries, some pizza crust, some Philly cheeseburger, which we made together when we did our pantry meals, taco soup, chili, beef tongue. I'm going to use that. I'm kind of anxious about it. I've heard it makes amazing tacos, but I have never actually done it. So if you're looking forward to seeing me journey with a beef tongue, that will be coming up in our pantry challenge here in the coming weeks. I also have the steakies that we purchased together on our big grocery haul, some chicken strips, some short ribs, sliced roast beef that we picked up from our butcher, a ham. I'm not a big ham fan. I don't know if you guys are, but I'm just not a big ham fan. So if you have a great ham recipe that you would like to share, maybe you can change my mind, but I need to get this thing out of my freezer. I also have a couple beef cuts left. We have a picana. We also have some cooked burger, which I prepped in advance to make life easier, some pork sausage, bison, some fish. Now, my guys go fishing in the summer, but we've been doing a pretty bad job of going through it. So I did tell my husband after this pantry inventory that I found 10 different bags of fish and we need to have a fish fry. So I'm kind of excited to see where that goes. We have a lot of sliced round steak, which is actually deer. We use this for jerky. It makes amazing snacks and we put it right in our dehydrator in the kitchen. So I actually have a couple different pounds of that marinating right now so we can have some snacks for the week. One thing we are running low on are the actual steaks that we get every year when we have our meat processed. This cow was huge and we got a ton of ground beef. Actually, we have 69 pounds left. So for that reason, I didn't get any ground deer on its own. I just have what we have left from the year past. What we did with our deer is turn it into summer sausage. We have jalapeno cheddar as well as just a regular. The kids absolutely love to snack on that. And we also had them do breakfast sausage. Because we are able to get so much breakfast sausage off our deer and they all really enjoy it, we actually don't normally purchase much pork at all, although I did grab some bacon from my last butcher box order, and I do have one pork tenderloin, which was down in the refrigerator freezer. While I was out there in the freezers, I went ahead and pulled in all of the pork sausage patties as well as a bunch more garlic bread so I can put it downstairs and free up a little more space in the main freezer. So now we know what I have and we know what I don't for the upcoming pantry challenge. I want to thank you for stopping by and remind you, if you need to make your own forms, t-shirts, designs, or anything else, make sure to check that Kittle link in the description, and I'll see you back soon.